Okay, we'll call the City of Kerrville Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Dorothy, would you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Bob Waller,
Here.
Garrett Harmon,
Here.
Don Barnett,
Here.
Michael Siegerman,
Here.
Rustin Zuber,
Here.
David Jones,
Here.
Marty Leonard.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an agenda and we have a quorum. First thing on the agenda is visitor citizen forum. Any person with business not scheduled on the agenda is encouraged to briefly speak their ideas to the commission. Please fill out the speaker request form, give it to the commission secretary prior to the meeting. Number of speakers be limited to the first 10 speakers. Each speaker limited to 3 minutes. No formal action can be taken on these items, as the Open Meetings Act requires formal action items to be posted on an agenda no later than 72 hours before the meeting. If formal action is required, the items will be placed on an agenda for a future meeting. I understand that. Harvey?
Yes, sir. Yes. Name is Harvey Brinkman, 821 Earl Garrett. I was here previously in reference to the famous Door property, which is on West Barnett, very close to the Doyle School. This property has been purchased by the Borrello family. They're seated right here. This is Johnny and Marta. Johnny and Marta own Rio Rancho Cafe between here and Ingram, and their goal, they have a couple other restaurants beside that one. We're really here for a Q&A kind of situation. We know nothing can be taken, no action can be taken today, but we need direction. We know we got to rezone the property. We know we can't rezone or spot zone the property. We have to take in blocks of area, or a block at least, or 2 blocks maybe, of property to get rezoned. Mr. Borrello has been around the neighborhood already, started this process of visiting with people in the neighborhood, door to door, saying here's what my goal is to do and this is what we'd like to do, and we're getting a lot of very positive feedback. The community has different names. I think you've been here longer than I have, so you'd know the name better than I, but and the history is really cool and neat for our town. It's one of the few old structures that hasn't been torn down. And this was built, they think, in '29, but that was the first advertisement of the property and at this address, and it was, I think, Kelly's Cafe. And over the years, it became different things and for different people. The Bratcher family was the one that made the most things happen there with the famous door. Johnny told me that he registered the name, the famous Door Cafe, the famous door, recently, and so he's got it protected now. T-shirts will be available soon. But we really, my first reaction, and we've had a meeting with Gordon about it, we want it to be what's good for the neighborhood. We could go over to Shriner Street. We think it'd be approximately 1.5 blocks or 2 blocks, the way you look at it, from the property, and take in Shriner Street back toward Buzzy's Barbecue in that industrial area that's there, and not affect the Doyle School or that side of the other side of West Barnett Street, or the north side of West Barnett. And we'd probably talking about 60 properties, guessing, that we would have to get rezoned or reapply to the zoning that would be applicable for our use. My office is on Earl Garrett. Have had really a good relationship with the city in the sense that my zoning, the RT zoning, works for us. I think RT would almost work for this. There will be no alcohol sales when he opens his restaurant here, and hopefully within a year, depending on how this goes. And he can answer those questions, and I'll let Johnny speak for those. But we really would like for you to personally somehow let Gordon know what your thoughts were for us to go forward. And then we'd meet with Gordon, come back to you guys, do all the right things to get all the neighborhood aware of what we're doing and find out if we're going to have any people that'll be saying, no, we don't like what you're wanting to do.
Well, first
So-
question is, does RT cover this, Gordon?
The RT allows for, it's a transitional district, and I can't remember off the top of my head, I think we can make it work. Harvey and I, we've talked about this in the past, and zoning this particular tract is, we're not gonna do that. I mean, the whole property, everything around it's residential, we're not gonna do that. So two thoughts came to mind. One is to zone a block and a half the property and get everybody on board. The other one is, and it's on the agenda tonight, is that during the comprehensive plan update and the zoning change, that this area be looked at as a mixed-use district or some other kind of land use.
Which is what it
category
is
where
today,
you could-
essentially.
Yeah, where you could do this kind of stuff and rezone it and redo it with the comp plan. I don't believe they wanna wait that long, is the issue, but that would be, to me, still the cleanest way to do it.
Is a conditional use permit an option?
No,
The immediate,
not now, not with
immediate,
this, not with this residential district. I mean,
It's a residential
Yeah.
district today,
Yeah.
even though
So
there's
the
commercial
immediate
properties.
neighbors-
Yeah, in 2012 is the actual date we think it closed, and, you know, as a bar, which was all good. The police loved it. Everybody in the neighborhood loved it, that it was closed as a bar. But it was 2012, and I don't know, Gordon was also looking at previous zoning, I think, 1974.
Yeah, and it was residential in 74, it's been non-conforming.
But this guy knows more
Oh, it's
about the
been
zoning.
non-conforming since
It's been
forever.
non-conforming for a long time.
so your immediate neighboring properties are all residential properties?
Yes, sir.
Used as residences?
Yes, sir.
And in the general two-block area, is there any business whatsoever, or is it all residence?
There is a bar,
There's another non-conforming bar within that area.
it's on Pascal, but we're not gonna be a bar. The bar is disappearing.
Understand that,
There is a bar on Pascal, and I can't remember that side street, Johnny, it's right there,
McFarland.
so it's.
McFarland, yeah, I'm
It's a
sorry.
non-conforming, legally operating bar?
Well, your hours of operation, are you gonna be for a lunch place or early dinner?
From 11 to 7.
Because you know Kerrville's an early dinner place.
Yeah. No,
It's all over with about 7.
yeah, we've talked to almost everyone in that neighborhood, and I mean, 100% of them are all for it. I mean, they love the idea of there being a restaurant there now.
Johnny, would you state your name and address, please, for the
Johnny
record?
Barayo, Ingram, Texas.
Thank you.
So the, I mean, I understand that everybody, and again, we're not taking any action, we're just asking questions. Everybody's for everything, but once you do that, you open up the door for someone else to come open a restaurant 2 doors down, and someone else to come open another one 3 doors down, and then you could have a problem with the neighborhood, and I mean, I wonder,
Yeah, there's no saying just one restaurant.
right. And I'm wondering if, you know, and listen, I think this is a great thing, but I'm just wondering if the neighborhood understands everybody's in favor of putting a restaurant there, but everybody's in favor of putting 5 restaurants there. That might be,
And what we want to do, I mean, the history on that place, I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, the people that have played music in there, and I mean, it's, and we want to put it back like it was. I mean, back, a soul food cafe, like it was back in the day. I mean, that's,
What about the parking situation?
we've cleared, that's what is it, 3/4 of an acre? That's, yeah, yeah, we've cleared the whole, it had a bunch of buildings on there. We've cleared the whole property, and I mean, we're,
Yeah, they have a
They will
site plan.
comply, they will meet the parking,
Yeah, they have a site plan that would,
they'll comply.
yeah,
Mhm.
now the building is still, the building itself is non-conforming because it's almost up to the right-of-way line. But,
How many square feet is in that building?
right now it's 2,500, I believe,
Okay.
around there.
Are you gonna expand it at all?
Yeah, that was the plan.
They'd have to build a kitchen.
Yeah,
Oh.
build a kitchen onto,
but not the actual eating area
Not the actual, what is there now, I mean, would stay, that's, we would have to build onto the back of it, another 25 feet back.
of kitchen
Mhm.
space, which you want to do that anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an ambitious undertaking. Most of the people that have been in Kerrville all their life knew the famous door.
So what do you think are the issues gonna be, this idea?
Well, I think it's gonna be, I think it's still gonna be neighborhood issues. I think that the thing, my direction is to do it during the comprehensive plan update and see if that area is transitioning enough to where you can rezone it, the whole area. I don't know that it is, but there may be a push in that area to wanna, to phase out of residential into something else.
So you think if we announce we're gonna look at rezoning, then the neighbors are gonna really come out, they're gonna look at this and say, wait a minute, this is, the potential is bigger than a breadbasket.
It's bigger than one lot, and that's what's everybody's gotta understand.
And you're opening up the area of development, is what you're basically.
Is that all bad?
So that'll be for the.
The value of those residences might go up
Oh,
if it took, go to commercial.
yeah. I think the property value is gonna go up, but some of the residents probably aren't valued very high,
Right.
but.
Can this open back up now
Yeah.
as a cafe? Okay.
Oh, come on.
George, is that gonna?
As a bar, then?
No, we can't.
Open it back up as a bar.
The non-conformity is expired. I mean, when you do that, you have 6 months.
Okay.
And,
If the property values go up, this thing starts developing, property values go up, is that gonna affect the taxes for the people who live there?
Yeah, that,
You're opening up a big can of worms.
that neighborhood has been known for the longest time as the hood. And I mean, it's, people, I mean, they, when I told them what my plans were, I mean, they were, you're gonna go build a restaurant in that neighborhood? You know what, my mother-in-law's lived in that neighborhood for 30 years. I mean, they don't even lock their door. I mean, it's, it just has a bad reputation, which it really isn't. I mean, it's, a lot of families live in that neighborhood and,
Reputations are hard to live up to, and they're
Yeah.
hard to live down.
yeah, that's, you know,
Right
there's-
or wrong.
yeah, and I don't know how much, over the time, I know the time that I was working here, I know the city did not put any money into that area, other than repairing something that broke. I mean, it was never an area where they went in and infused money into there. Maybe that would be good for the whole city if that area was upgraded.
Well, I mean, again, I think it's a great thing that you're talking about impacting everybody that lives there from the standpoint of what's gonna be next door to me, and are my taxes gonna go up, is it gonna cost me more to live here? It's fine that the value of the property goes up, if you got no place else to go live. Well, I think it'd be a tough sell, I mean, because like Don says, when you start advertising, you're looking at this is what the possibilities are, everyone understands.
They'll need to be 100% buy-in, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's our goal. I mean, we don't think that we wanna try to do, how many blocks in there, in that whole area would be maybe 20 blocks. No, I don't wanna do 20 blocks, but we want the 20 blocks to know what we're doing and, what we're trying to do. And there's a couple things. This is we did get a historical marker in 2015. It was approved in 2012, and it actually was installed in 2015. And what the marker means is that on this site, this happened. And you got a copy in that paperwork that I gave you that shows what happened on that site. Well, what on that site means we can tear down the building. We don't want to tear down the building. The building has, if you go in it, you can feel it.
Yeah.
But you got to go in it, and we're not going to let you in yet.
Well, Harvey, what you're trying to market here is a venue,
Yes, sir.
which is a little connection to the past
Yes, sir.
and bring it to the present. That's what I understand.
yeah.
So it'll be a place to eat and a place for music. That's what I.
No, it won't be music. It'll
There
just
won't
be
be.
a place to eat.
No, that's the history. like everybody talks about, you know, I run into the former county judge, Mr. Tinley, used to eat there every time he could, you know, when he was an attorney. Buzzy used to eat there. I know of bankers that used to go by and pick up hooch from there, you know, and don't even get out of the car. But that's not the goal. It's to bring back neighborhoods. If you go and look at an East Austin area, which my son lives in East Austin, and he has gone through the gunfights, the knife stabbings and everything, but the gentrification for that area has been enormous. Yes, it could possibly run people out of the neighborhood. That isn't the goal. You know, I look at it as affordable housing. When we got into the famous Door property, we started out, I think, and Lee may remember, about 13 houses. And what I've done with them is we've remodeled them. Only one out of the 13 was occupied when we bought it. Now all of them are occupied. And it's people that are working in your community. And some may work for Mr. Zuber down there, I'm not sure, but I mean, they're out making a living. They're good people, hardworking, and they've added a lot to the neighborhood, and it's cleaning it up. Is it all done? No. No, there's buildings that are falling down in there. We were getting ready to, and we're still planning to build a couple houses that are on West Barnett further down. I don't think that we need to worry about the residential area. It will stay fixed. There's no other commercial property in the area other than this, really. Everything else is gone.
Well, what I'd say, Johnny and Harvey, you've given us a broad brush approach what you want to do.
Yes, sir.
And I think we just need to, I would defer to Gordon and his group to come up with maybe some options that might work.
Okay.
We can look at some stuff and put it on as a discussion item if you want to start with at a future meeting.
I think you ought to do a map of some kind.
Okay.
And look at the properties and kind of and see what impact, what it might look like.
Okay, we can do that.
If we did a transition in there, that would give us a real hard look at it.
We can do that.
What, you know, I mean, I think it all sounds really good, we can do everything we wanna do here, but what is the process for notifying everyone that?
We'll lay all that
all
out
the
for you.
possibilities that can happen if you.
We can
do
try
this.
to lay all that out for you, and like I said, one of the things that you're gonna be doing during the comp plan process, you're gonna be moving some of these lines around.
Yeah.
At least I hope you do.
They need to be, huh?
Yeah, they need to. But let's look at this at a future date. We'll try to set up something.
Okay.
And one last comment, Mr. Sigerman, in reference to, you know, changes. Sue Tiemann and I we did an RT change in an area all around over by the junior high. Garden Street, the other end of Barnett, all that was residential. We had it rezoned RT, and there hadn't been a change yet. I guess I'm wrong. That building right across from the school is a commercial building at the corner of Barnett and Tivy. And did it hurt the neighborhood? No. I mean, it enhanced the neighborhood the way I see it, but it didn't change a lot. Garden Street doesn't have a business on it. It's all
How many
residential.
blocks did you do in that transition?
Sir?
How many blocks did y'all do? Do you remember?
Probably about 6. We went all the way up to Barnett and then down to Shriner, or what is it?
And the reason you did that, rezoned it, was for what reason?
You don't even remember, Don? It's probably about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
8 or 9, and I think it was for a particular business that wanted to be in that area, but it includes the Baptist church area and everything, and no one opposed it. It just
Well,
extended it from where it was on Earl Garrett.
There's no question, Kerrville can always use a good restaurant, no question.
A go-to restaurant, a destination restaurant.
First soul food restaurant.
Well, thank you both. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, number 2 is the consent agenda. All items listed below in the consent agenda are considered routine or ministerial in nature and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of items unless the commissioner or citizen so requests, in which the item or items will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item 2A is approval of the minutes from the June 15, 2017 meeting. I was not here for that meeting, and I apologize again for missing that. Under call to order, we need to put Commissioner Harmon as the person that called the meeting to order that day. Any other additions or comments? If not, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from the June 15th meeting with the change that Commissioner Waller noted.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Okay, number 3, consideration and action. 3A is a replat. Gordon?
Yes, we have a replat that the commission tabled at its last meeting, with some questions, that the applicant and surveyor is here who can answer them for you. And you have the updated plat is the large plat that's in your packet.
What were our questions last time about the easement?
There was questions about the utility easement that ran through the property.
And the road.
And the road, aspects of the road.
Yeah, I think that it looked like the easement got documented pretty well. But Lee, could you explain why there's a difference between the property line on Goat Creek cutoff between the as platted and the new plat?
Yes, sir. Lee Vocal, 212 Clay Street. When we went out on the ground to do the survey, we found the monumentation for the lots had changed on the Goat Creek cutoff side of the right-of-way of the road from the initial plat, which was done, I want to think in the early 60s or late 50s. I looked for documentation, a deed or something that transferred more right-of-way to the county. Could find none. So in my thought, it was just a taking of right-of-way at some point by occupation now that the stakes were there. And it also affects the lots on each side of us. It's just not our lot. But there was a triangle taken from our lot that is now right-of-way of Goat Creek cutoff. The other additions, by the way, I'll tell you that so you can note them on there. We did add an easement for the power line that went through the property that was outside of an existing easement. So our plat will take care of that. There was also one, and I don't know if y'all saw it, was running down the boundary line, and we added an easement for that. I'm thinking that would be the southwest boundary line. Also added the note that this plat has been waived by the county as far as their review and approval. This is the ETJ property. We went to one of their meetings and they gave us a court order, and it's noted on the plat that waives them from approval. So this plat will only be approved by this commission.
Just as a note, you may see more of that. The county has decided to look at the plats in the ETJ on a case-by-case basis, where no road construction or road right-of-way is being dedicated, and the plats within the city limits, they may start waiving some of those reviews to the commission.
So essentially, Lee, it looks like that originally platted, it was drawn one way and then got built slightly different.
That's correct. And again, at some point, and I wish I knew when, I wish I had the deed that would tell us that, which I don't. At some point, that right-of-way for Goat Creek cutoff changed, and the county increased their right-of-way taking from these lots.
Well, I think it's better to go with what's on the ground also. So I think that's the right way to go.
What's real?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay, this doesn't call for a public hearing. Other comments?
Or does it, this says public hearing on 3A. Is it?
You should require one, correct, Gordon? Public hearing? Require a public hearing?
No, we held a public hearing at the last meeting.
Last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then waive
We
the
held a
approval.
public hearing and then commission tabled the plat to answer these questions that.
Have Lee come back and answer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other comments from the commission? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Also move.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign, passes 5-0. Okay, number 4, items for discussion. Review and discuss home occupations as defined in Article 11-1-3, 57 of the City of Kerrville zoning code. It's on page 8. It's where this starts.
And what we did was go back into the draft that we've been working on. We made the corrections and the changes that the commission recommended at the last meeting. And if you're ready, we'll go ahead and stamp this draft and prepare and set a notice for public hearing and formal hearing and move this on to where we can get a home occupation section in the ordinance that Danny's people can actually enforce.
To me, it seemed like everything lined up pretty well with what our discussion was last time. There were a couple of things I wanted to note. Number 3 on registration required. I think it may just be a typo, or maybe I'm not reading it correctly.
Oh, there's 2 in there. Yeah.
It says, all home occupations shall be required to register upon forms prepared by the city planner for the purpose, and that should be a purpose of something, or
For this purpose.
for this purpose, or that,
Okay, well, yeah,
the wording on that is a little,
We'll look at that,
Yeah.
that sentence construction.
you know.
Same thing on line 4. In compliance with the standards of operation
Yeah.
probably.
In compliance with the standards of the operation set out below, okay.
I have a question on B, number 3. From a clarity perspective, I guess, storage should be enclosed within the residence, attached garage, or permitted accessory building. But then the next sentence, outside storage in conjunction with a home occupation now shall be prohibited. So I guess my question is, permitted accessory building?
Yes, well,
Could that be an outbuilding?
Yes, you can be.
But it says here, outside
But
storage.
The difference in
Be
that,
outside
Bob, is
the
that
building.
it will be, if it's in an approved accessory building, we expect the storage to be in that accessory building. We don't expect to find it in the backyard. That's the intent of that anyway.
Okay, but I guess the second sentence says outside storage, it should be prohibited.
Outside.
You're just
outside-
talking about
of the
sitting
building.
physically outside.
Physically outside the building.
Okay. And then in number 5, under equipment, the installation, storage, or use of any equipment or machinery not normally found in a household or general office. I guess, the questions I wrote down, what if somebody's doing pottery work? If somebody's doing some kind of woodworking?
Yeah, well, we're looking at the woodworking equipment to be more the home size that would fit in the garage, not one that you would need to put.
That's
up.
what I'm, okay.
Yeah, 20 by.
But
50.
something like that would be
Yeah.
allowed, but as an exception?
That's, yeah.
Okay, so the plans are to make this an official draft?
We will try to do that, and get it back and get a date set for a public hearing. Zuber?
Gordon, one question. the RT zone,
Uh-huh.
is it grouped with residential zones or is it grouped with commercial zones?
It is primarily a residential district.
So the way I read that in the scope, does that include RT zones?
Yes, it would include the RT district.
So RTs, if you're in an RT district, you would have to register your
You
business.
would still have to register, unless you modified or changed the from a residence to a business, and you make that transition through building inspection, then yes, you would have to go through this process.
So if you're
So
in a,
those who convert those homes to office, let's say. Now, that has been converted to office, and we don't let it go back to residential. We don't let them go back and forth.
Okay.
So once you have committed to a non-residential use, then you know you would not have to go through this process.
It's no longer a home
It's
business.
no longer a home.
got it.
It's primarily a home first.
One other change I'd like to think about, and I didn't catch it last time we talked about it, is in item C, permitted home occupations on number 1. Provided client contacts consultations are conducted off-site. I think some client contact and consultations should be allowed. My own experience, I have clients that may come in, I may have 1 or 2 meetings a week that may last for an hour, each one. I think maybe if we, but I could also see how that could get out of hand, but maybe if we limit those consultations, similar to the way we've limited some of these other items, I would suggest provided client contacts consultations are kept to a maximum of 5 hours per week. You know, that's an hour a day, every day of the week. I don't think that's more than I think I probably have ever had, but it's something I think would be reasonable.
But fairly unenforceable.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to enforce, but
Could you just put with limited client contacts?
a lot of these uses where you've got, clients or students coming are gonna be more monitored by the neighbors than they are by city staff.
Right, right.
Let us look at something on that.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll talk about it, see if we can come up with
Yeah,
something.
I think a certain amount of consultation should be allowed. If you have somebody working contract off-site, you need to meet together to, you know, discuss a project or an item. I think some of those consultations should be allowed.
You know, it would be easy to put, you know, provided that client, contacts and consultations are kept at a minimum, and then you say, well, what's the minimum?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, that would be easy to do, but hard to enforce.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I put an
Yeah.
hour number, so that once a complaint is filed, you can monitor that and see. You're right, it is harder to do, but at least there's a standard established.
Let's talk about it, let me look at some other ordinances out there and see if there's something we can come up with.
I mean, we're allowing 5 clients a day,
Yeah,
so.
For
I mean,
tutoring.
Something similar to that.
That's only saying that it's not unlimited, I guess.
Mhm.
That's students.
Yeah, and then the dressmaker offering the same thing, 5 clients per day.
Yeah.
And
so
so
you
they're,
do 5, in a situation like this, you could probably do 5 per week and be all right.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll look at limiting somehow, to some number.
I've got a question. Seems to me to be a conflict. You look at number 6 under B, and sales and display, direct on-site sales, retail or wholesale. And then over here under C, you say you can be a dressmaker, tailor. I mean, there's gonna be sales going on.
Well, that's, Yeah, I mean, that's one of those splitting hair kind of definitions. But, yeah, you know, if you're gonna go in and buy a suit of clothes, you're buying something at that residence. The other one was more directed at, you know, home-based sales.
Yeah,
and-
retail.
Yeah, retail sales.
Direct retail.
Where you're keeping inventory of
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
product.
Any other questions? You need a motion on this to,
No, we'll just give us direction, you wanna see it come back in a final form and set a public hearing. We'll do that for, late August or first September.
I did have one other question, and it refers back to that on-site retail or wholesale. How does Avon or Mary Kay work into that
Those sales
scenario?
those are done off-site primarily.
Okay,
But they go to your house. They
Yeah.
come to your house.
Yeah.
right,
They don't have it coming into their house.
right, okay.
Danny, does this cover, have you read this again? Danny, we getting there?
Yes, sir.
Danny's seen all the drafts that y'all have seen, so,
I know, but I want him to have the teeth he needs to.
yeah, he's got specific needs. that he's
Yeah, I know he
trying-
does.
I anticipate some pushback. A little bit,
No, we
maybe,
do too,
maybe an understatement
yeah,
on certain things.
Should be a pretty interesting public hearing.
should be.
Yeah,
I think,
because some of these people are not gonna come out of the woodwork.
I think you need to, on this language about permitting and using 5 and all that, you're gonna have to stay very consistent, because where you're inconsistent,
Yeah.
they're gonna ask the question, why do you allow 5 students a day, and you don't allow 5 contacts a day? So that's the only thing you need to be is consistent in your language. On the permitted or not permitted. I think the not permitted is a lot clearer though, for me. Prohibited, not permitted.
No, I think those are pretty clear. Okay, I would say, I guess on behalf of the commission, just put this in the form of like a final draft, and then set up a public hearing.
We can
I
do it.
think you talked in the August timeframe.
We just give you the date so you won't be here.
We'll look at the schedule and get it back to you.
Does this require public hearing
It will.
and action at that meeting? Okay.
I will probably recuse myself from that particular meeting.
Okay.
We know where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get out that easy, Gary.
Okay. Next item is the comprehensive plan update.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I think I've met almost all of you. Those that I haven't met, I look forward to that. I'm Mark McDaniel, City Manager for, I guess, 2 months now. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're up to with the comprehensive plan, because you all have a keen interest in that, and you have a specific role in that, obviously. So I've talked to your chairman a little bit, and then some of you others in passing about what we're up to. And this is just a chance to share with you a little bit more detail. It's not fully baked in terms of our schedule. That's why I don't have anything formal to you that's set in stone, but I wanted to at least come and let you ask whatever questions that you have about the process, because there's a lot of buzz in the community about what we're up to. So with that, I want to, just first of all comment, as you all probably know, that our last update was in 2008, I believe, and so that makes the plan almost 10 years old, and the world has certainly changed in the last 10 years, and Kerrville has not been unaffected by that change. The schedule that we have as a draft out there that we're still tweaking calls for us to put a request for qualifications out for a consulting team that would be helping us as a third party through the process. That went out on the street yesterday, and it will be due in early next month. And then we anticipate some interviews with some consultants and the selection of a consultant before the end of August. At the same time, the council's been asked to appoint a steering committee for the effort, and not unlike, I think, the 2002 update, which had a steering committee. This one, the councils, each of them will appoint 6 individuals, and then the council themselves will serve on the commission or the task force or steering committee, and then I've asked them to also appoint all of you, so that you're up to speed on how it's progressing, you're up to speed on what the issues are and what's being discussed, and ultimately, when you're asked to review and move approval to recommend for adoption, then you're fully, I guess, versed on what's in and what's not in and so forth. So that's the plan, and so that's a rather large steering committee, but we can certainly make that work. And I think that's the important thing about this process, is that there's lots of public input. And so in that same vein, you imagine this large steering committee that would be meeting monthly for a month. For a year, and so it'd be a year process. And we would include also subcommittees around certain chapters in the plan. So we'd start off with a community visioning exercise or a retreat where we'd invite lots of the public in to help develop that vision and what I would call principles or the chapters of the plan. So for example, one chapter of the plan might be historic preservation, another chapter might be downtown revitalization and transportation and so on. So once those are established, then there's subcommittees in the community that are assembled around each of those chapters, so that now you're growing your public input. And then we'll have lots of opportunities for the public to, once it starts to take shape, to comment on what's in the plan or what's being contemplated. So lots of not just formal town halls and public hearings, but what I call pop-up town halls or displays in places like grocery stores and banks and different places where we go to the public instead of asking them to come to us and just give us some good comment. We'll certainly use the citizen survey that's been recently done. We'll use all the work that's been done prior in terms of prior comprehensive plans and build on that. We'll use the work of the prior ZOAC group that did a lot of work on zoning and feed that into the process. And so it's going to be a long process and won't be efficient in terms of time, but I think it'll be a great process in terms of getting to a plan that is really buys in, gets community buy-in from the entire community. And I've asked the council to please reach out and make sure that all parts of our community are represented and that we're not leaving anybody out of the process. And so we're working really hard to try to make sure that happens right now. So in addition to that, your role obviously is important because our charter calls for you all to update the plan periodically, and so that, again, as a formal process, it'll come through you toward the end of the process for formal approval and recommendation, and then on to City Council for final approval. Again, the consultant will look at all the work that's been done to date. They'll also interview a lot of people, and I would suspect they'll interview all of you about what you're seeing as current issues in our comprehensive plan or land use or zoning or regulations like what you have talked about tonight. And also critical in this process will be Gordon's replacement. Gordon's last day with us is the 14th. And as an interim, he's done a fine job for us, and we're thankful that he's been here. We're in the process now of trying to fill that spot, and we're looking for not just a chief planning officer, but also an executive director for development services, so they have kind of a dual capacity and kind of over all that development function, so that there's a kind of a quarterback to make things happen in that area. So that process is going well. We've got a lot of applicants that are coming in, and we're reviewing those now, and we hope to have somebody here actually before he leaves.
You mean someone in the job or someone interviewed for the job?
In the job.
In the job before Gordon leaves.
Yeah.
You're talking about July 14th or August or September, October?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've had that option many.
Of 218.
Yeah.
Gordon, you're not having
Yeah.
fun?
2018.
Oh, I'm thrilled.
You're not having fun?
I am, I am.
We like having you here, Gordon. We really do.
You can hang out for another year for the comprehensive plan review.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he'll be a special advisor.
Mark, are you gonna add some staff people to this steering committee at all? Or are they just gonna be working for the committee, or will there be, how will that be done? From your staff? Or-
Yeah, all my staff will be involved. I'll be directly involved. EA will be involved. You know, just Parks and Recreation director.
So you'll have key department
Absolutely.
heads involved.
Right.
What about the county? Is the county gonna play any role in this?
Well, what I've asked the council to do is consider people outside of the city limits, because the planning area will go 2 miles beyond our current city limits. You know, right now our ETJ is 1 mile, but we all know that we're 25,000 population now. And so, you know, the council tomorrow could declare us 25,000, and we would be 25,000 just by ordinance, if you know, assuming we have the data to back it up, and we do. So our planning area is now 2 miles, and so we want those people to be in the process. And you know, we're going to reach out to the commissioners court. We're going to reach out to the school board, you know, and the Chamber of Commerce and the KEDC and all different folks directly in the process as part of this outreach effort. Some of those folks will actually, I would assume, be on the steering committee as well. So I've asked the council to make sure that the majority of the folks on the steering committee are current residents, but we do want to have people that live outside of Kerrville and in Kerr County involved as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes it would be beneficial to have the county play some role in this, because that way they'll have buy-in to what
Sure.
comes to it,
Absolutely. Yep.
as
And-
opposed to us pushing into them.
Right. And, you know, when you look at the scope of this potential plan, there's going to be a lot of things in the implementation plan, which coming off of those principles or those chapters, they'll have goals, they'll have actions, specific actions, but it won't be all the city executing those. There might be some of our partners that are actually executing those. And so we definitely want, you know, everybody to be a part of the process so they have accepted their role going forward on implementation. The other thing that we want to do as a follow-on effort, perhaps as a parallel process toward the end, is begin to look at our existing codes and make sure that those codes, like home occupation or like historic preservation, and there's other tools that are available to us that other cities use, like overlays and a number of other things, that those codes are looked at and amended so that it supports the direction of the new plan. Because it's not going to work to have a comprehensive plan and have codes that are inconsistent with the direction you're wanting to go. So a rewrite of some of our codes would also be something we'd be looking at, again, using a consultant, working with you all, just like you talked about with home occupation. You know, it could be a number of things depending upon what the subject is. So that'll be a parallel or a follow-on effort. But the RFQ that went out recently was just for the facilitation and help and support and assistance with the development of the comprehensive plan.
I'm sure you've been briefed on some of the bad things that happened in the past.
I have.
We agreed not to call it the UDC.
I didn't say that.
Well, and it doesn't have to be called that. I mean, we have a number of regulations,
I've
and
never said that.
there's a number of ways to deal with that, and it won't be a process without disagreement for sure, but that's democracy, and I think we get there by being as inclusive as possible and just, you know, putting it all out there and let people have their opportunity to weigh in, and stick to a schedule, stick to a process, and, you know, adjust as needed, but, you know, keep pushing the process through.
Well, Harvey can probably tell you that sometimes some of these events get a life of their own.
Yes.
They're not factually based, or the reality is not there, and those are the hard ones to fight
They are.
and to clear up the expectation. But I hope we can get past it this time in the process that people. And it sounds like if you get this large of a group, it's a lot of input, and a lot of miscommunication can come out of that too.
That's right. And so part of the effort is a whole communications plan around what we're doing, so that we're pushing our messages out and not has somebody else telling our story for us. So
Yeah.
an official
Good.
message out there,
Good for you.
newsletters, articles, visiting with civic groups, you know, the whole 9 yards.
You have a date for the
Yes. The goal, if we can get all the names in and then look at where we need to maybe make adjustments if needed, to make sure again that the whole community is represented, would be August 8th that the council would make those appointments. And if not, then maybe push it back to the 22nd when they're going to be asked to make an award of a contract to a consultant. So
Have you worked with some consultants in the past that you're familiar with on something like this?
yes, definitely.
And
Yeah,
good experience, or?
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, and there's some that that's what the interview process is about, and reference checks and checking with my colleagues that have used these folks. And we don't want somebody to come in here and just do the usual cookie cutter, city A, city B, because every city's different, and it's really about process, because it's the citizens and the community's plan, not the staff's plan or the consultant's plan. So process is real important.
And Mark, you bring experience of doing one of these as well.
Yes, and it's goes way beyond the traditional comprehensive plan, where it's typically all about land use and thoroughfares and maybe a few other things. This goes way beyond that, and even gets into things that the city doesn't have any responsibility for, like education, or other things. And I mean, we do to some degree, but that's why we want to have representation from the school district and Shriner and others, so that we can talk about those things and then have that action plan. And in a perfect world, we would go to each of those entities and ask them to endorse the plan, so that everybody's endorsed the plan, not just the city.
Big key.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well thought out so far.
Well, you said it takes on a life of its own. I can remember doing this in a prior community, and the mayor looked at me one day and he said, "Mark, this is really making me nervous because I don't know where it's going." And I said, "Mayor, that's a good thing, because then it's not your plan, it's the community's plan." So
That's a good name for it.
Yeah.
Community Comprehensive Plan.
well, there you go. And that's part of what we're going to do, is we're going to brand it, and that'll be all the messaging and
Absolutely.
marketing around it and so forth.
Absolutely.
And one other thing to think about, it's a ways out, but it could be right in the middle of really getting the wheels going, is that I think probably 3 of us will be termed out come the first of the year. I know I will be. Bob, I don't know if you term out first of the year.
I think I do too. Do you have that, Nut?
Can they be reappointed?
I just show up till they tell me no. Don't come back.
Michael,
I've got
Michael can.
I'm appointed for 1 year, I can be reappointed.
Maybe.
Doesn't mean I'm gonna be reappointed.
How many terms can they serve?
Well, it just, I guess, when thinking about
Just a second.
new commissioners coming in, it might be good to recruit some members of the steering committee, possibly, or at least somebody familiar enough with what's been taking place up to that point.
Maybe.
And that's another huge benefit of having that broad representation of the community, because hopefully your future leadership is coming out of that process and familiar enough with that process that you don't have to start from ground zero and they own the plan. It's not somebody else's plan and then they want their plan. And then, that's the other thing too, is it won't be static. So every year, not every 5 years or whatever, every year we're going to provide an update on the plan. Here's where we are. Here's what we said we were going to do. Maybe these things aren't working and we should abandon them. That's happened to me as well. But every year it's updated in that fashion, at least the implementation plan. And of course your land use plan is updated every time you do a zoning, if necessary. But so it'll be dynamic, and when the council's taking action on any item related to that, or if, for that matter, you all, what I want to do is put an icon on your agenda that says this item is related to the comprehensive plan, so that it's always out there in front of everybody, and it's really meaningful and not just a plan on a shelf kind of a thing.
Garrett, a quick rundown of the members is that there'll be 3 up for reappointment the first year, and everyone has the ability to be reappointed if they want to be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in addition to that, these meetings, all of them, including the steering committee meetings, would be public. They're not going to be closed meetings. That, you know, you'll have quorums of council there, quorums of all of you there. And so even if there's a shift and some of you roll off for whatever reason, then it doesn't mean you can't attend. So,
Where are you gonna put these 80 people?
well, we'll find some meeting space, maybe hooking up with some of our partners or, and, you know, because we're going to need definitely some
It's gonna be
space
a
for
big room.
breakouts and so forth.
Well, 2001, it was at BT Wilson.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. Any other questions I can answer for y'all? And it's early, and I'll make a point to come by on a regular basis to give you updates, even though, you know, hopefully you all will be directly involved and you'll know, but just to get the word out about where we are publicly, use every chance I can get to do that.
All right, very good.
Mark,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff reports.
There will not be a meeting on the 20th. There will be a very large meeting on August the 3rd. Interesting items. So
Bummer.
everybody show up.
I think I will
Bummer.
be out of town.
I'll be out of town the 3rd.
Listen to
Bummer.
that.
I'll be in Colorado.
Move that, move that.
Can you move it?
Huh?
Can you move it?
Well, if we don't have a quorum, we may have to move it, but if we have a quorum, no, we'll keep it on schedule, because some of these things are gonna be notified and posted in 2 weeks.
Huh?
We have a good.
Well, certain things we can do with 4.
Yes, you can.
I think, but we need at least 4 to take action. Okay. And so you're saying you're not going to be here for
This
any
is
of these
it.
subsequent meetings
Bummer.
This is
you're
it.
talking about?
I've
Yep.
enjoyed it.
We've enjoyed having you, Gordon.
No, you've done a great job. Thank you for your service.
You sure you don't want to stay?
I retired for a reason, my friend.
Okay. Any other business before this commission? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Right. 5-0. Thank you. We're adjourned.